Have you ever wondered how the ancient Greeks, pioneers of democracy, dealt with law and punishment? It's a fascinating topic indeed. The society of ancient Greece, with its emphasis on civic duty, played a crucial role in maintaining order. This was no easy task. Their legal system was unique and rather revolutionary for its time. Unlike modern society, there were no professional lawyers in ancient Greece. The citizens themselves were the prosecutors and defenders. This participatory process was a reflection of their strong democratic ideals, where every citizen had a role in the administration of justice. In this legal landscape, they tackled a range of crimes, from minor offenses to serious breaches. The punishments varied accordingly, with an underlying objective of keeping the societal balance intact. So let's journey back in time and understand how ancient Greeks approached crimes from the minor to the serious. Stay with us as we delve into the intriguing world of ancient Greek law and punishment. In ancient Greece, not all crimes were created equal. Let's start with the minor offenses. These were infractions that, while not condoned by society, did not warrant the harshest of penalties. Two such crimes were theft and slander. Theft, in its various forms, was a common minor offense. Whether it was stealing a neighbor's livestock or taking an unattended item in the marketplace, the punishment typically involved a fine. The value of this fine was often set at twice the value of the stolen property. This did more than just compensate the victim. It acted as a deterrent, making the risk of stealing far outweigh the potential reward. Slander, on the other hand, was a crime of the tongue. It involved spreading false or damaging information about another person. While this may not seem like a significant crime by today's standards, in a society where reputation was paramount, slander could be a devastating offense. Public shaming was a common punishment for slander. The accused, if found guilty, would be brought to the center of town, and the nature of their crime announced to the public. In both cases, it was typically the victim's responsibility to seek justice. There were no police forces as we know them today, so victims would bring their complaints to a magistrate, who would then decide if the case was worth pursuing. Theft and slander are just two examples of minor crimes in ancient Greece. There were many others, each with its own set of penalties. These could range from fines to public shaming, and even to temporary banishment in some cases. Though these punishments might seem mild, they carried a heavy social stigma that deterred many from committing such acts. In a society where honor and reputation were highly valued, the fear of public shame was often more of a deterrent than the actual penalty. Even minor offenses could lead to a loss of social standing, a price too steep for most to pay. Beyond minor offenses, the Greeks had a category of crimes that were considered more serious. This tier of crime included offenses like assault and fraud, which were regarded with a heavier hand than simple misdemeanors. Assault, for instance, was considered a grave violation of a person's sanctity and dignity. It wasn't merely physical harm that the Greeks were concerned about. They believed that such actions disrupted the harmony of their society, and therefore, the perpetrators needed to be severely dealt with. Fraud, too, was a serious crime. The Greeks prided themselves on their sense of honor and fairness. Any form of deceit was seen as an affront to these values. Whether it was a merchant cheating customers with false scales or a citizen lying under oath, fraud was considered a crime against the community. How were these intermediate crimes dealt with? Well, the Greeks had an interesting system. Instead of a single judge or a panel of judges, these crimes were usually tried by a jury of citizens. These jurors were ordinary people, chosen by lot, and they could number in the hundreds. It was a kind of democratic justice, where the citizens themselves determined the guilt or innocence of the accused. The punishments for these crimes were more severe than for minor offenses. A guilty verdict could result in larger fines, enough to make a serious dent in the perpetrator's wealth. It could also mean the loss of political rights, a serious consequence in a society that valued civic participation. In some cases, the guilty could even be exiled, banished from the city-state that they had wronged. The Greeks took these intermediate crimes seriously. They believed that by punishing those who committed assault or fraud, they were preserving the harmony and integrity of their society. They were sending a clear message that such disruptive behavior would not be tolerated. In this way, the Greeks sought to maintain social harmony by punishing those who disrupted it. Then, there were the crimes that the Greeks considered most grave. In the world of ancient Greece, serious crimes were those that could threaten the very fabric of society. Crimes like murder and treason fell into this category. Murder, whether intentional or accidental, was seen as a grave offense. The Greeks believed in the sanctity of life, and any act that disrupted this balance was considered a serious crime. Murder cases were often tried in the Areopagus, a special court that sat on the hill of Ares in Athens. The accused, if found guilty, could face the ultimate punishment: death. However, it wasn't as simple as that. The Greeks had a nuanced understanding of murder. If a person killed another in self-defense or in a fit of uncontrollable rage following a personal insult, the punishment could be less severe. Treason, on the other hand, was a crime against the state. If a citizen was found guilty of betraying their city-state, whether by collaborating with the enemy or revealing state secrets, they were considered a traitor. The ecclesia, the assembly of citizens, would decide their fate. The punishment for treason was often severe. It could range from confiscation of property, loss of political rights, to even death. The Greeks took these crimes seriously because they understood their potential to disrupt the order of society. They believed in the rule of law and the need for punishment to serve as a deterrent. The severity of the punishment was meant to match the gravity of the crime. The Greeks also believed in the concept of nemesis, divine retribution for those who committed hubris, or acts of arrogance against the gods or societal norms. These serious crimes and their punishments were held up as examples, a stark reminder of the consequences of breaking the law. The fear of such severe and irreversible punishments was a powerful deterrent, keeping citizens in line and maintaining the peace and order that was crucial for the functioning of the city-states. These serious crimes were feared and avoided, as the punishments were often severe and irreversible. And what about the courts? How did they function in ancient Greece? Well, they played an integral role in the administration of justice, but not in the way we might imagine today. There were no professional lawyers or judges in ancient Greece. Instead, the courts were a place where citizens, not professionals, did the heavy lifting. In fact, the Greek legal system was quite unique. Citizens could bring charges against one another, and the accused were given the opportunity to defend themselves. This was a far cry from our modern system where lawyers represent clients. In ancient Greece, there were no law schools, no bar exams, no professional legal counsels. The courtroom was a space for everyday citizens to publicly debate and decide matters of justice. Now let's talk about the juries, because they were quite different too. Today we're used to seeing a jury of 12 people, but in ancient Greece, a jury could be as small as a few hundred people and as large as a few thousand. These jurors were not selected for their legal expertise. Instead, they were ordinary citizens, chosen by lot, who brought their own experiences and perspectives to the courtroom. The role of these citizen jurors was to listen to the arguments, weigh the evidence, and then vote on the verdict. There was no judge to guide them, no legal expert to explain the intricacies of the law. The jurors were expected to use their own judgment and common sense. In this system, the courts were not just a means of enforcing laws. They were also a place for public debate where the values and norms of the society were discussed and shaped. So, in the absence of professional legal institutions, the ancient Greeks relied heavily on their citizens to uphold justice. The courts were a democratic space where every voice mattered and every vote counted. It's fascinating to see how the ancient Greeks, in the absence of professional legal institutions, relied on their citizens to uphold justice. So, we've taken a journey through ancient Greek law and punishment. We've delved into the intricacies of their legal system, from minor to serious crimes, and how they were dealt with. We've seen how a stolen loaf of bread could result in a fine, and how more serious offenses like murder were punished with banishment or even death. Then, we explored the role of the courts in ancient Greece. We saw how they were the cornerstone of their society, a place where citizens gathered to settle disputes, seek justice, and maintain social harmony. In reflecting on this journey, it's fascinating to see how the ancient Greek system of law and punishment has laid the groundwork for our modern legal systems. From the concept of a jury to the idea of proportional punishment, their influence is undeniable. While our legal systems have evolved over the centuries, the ancient Greeks' quest for justice and social harmony still echoes in our courts today.